for publicly reporting the number of COVID-related deaths in Iowa using the same system as the National Center for Health Statistics. The change initially added at least 177 deaths to the state count overnight. State officials, including the governor, are urging Iowans who are stressed or depressed to go online for help. The state has used a federal grant to hire more than 100 staff who provide free counseling through appointments scheduled on the COVID Recovery Iowa website. Karen Hyatt, an emergency mental health specialist in the Iowa Department of Human Services, says the pandemic has exacerbated already anxious times for many Iowans. The federal government means, or rather the federal grant means, every Iowan of every age is eligible for counseling. The website is covidrecoveryrelief.org. How many of you had your phones ringing and ringing over the past couple of days? Many folks across the state seem to be getting dialed over and over. And yes, even our very own police chief, Mike Tupper, received calls. His best advice to try and stop the scammers is contact your phone provider. Now, if you do answer, Chief Tupper says don't get into any extended conversations, as most of the scammers are trying to get you to answer simple yes or no questions. The best advice, he says, is to just not answer a call from a number you don't recognize. I think I'm up to 18 calls in the past couple of days on my phone. President Trump presented the nation's highest civilian honor to renowned wrestler and coach Dan Gable. Dan, of course, also a gold medal winner in the 1972 Summer Olympics. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to people who have made exceptional contributions to the security or national interests of America, to its culture, or to other significant endeavors. Some sad news. Retired Air Force Brigadier General Charles Chuck Yeager, the World War II fighter pilot ace and quintessential test pilot who showed he had the right stuff, when in 1947 he became the first person to fly faster than the speed of sound, has died. He was 97. On October 14th, 1947, Yeager, then a 24-year-old captain, pushed an orange bullet-shaped Bell X-1 rocket plane past 660 miles per hour to break the sound barrier. Finally, a boy begs his father to get him a Christmas tree this year. Each year, the boy asks, and the father tells him, "I don't want to pay for a Christmas tree." But the son kept begging. Unable to bear the son's whining any further, he picks up his axe and heads out of the house. 30 minutes later, he returns with a great big Christmas tree. "How did you cut that down so fast?" the son asks. "I didn't cut it down," the father replies. "I got it at a tree lot." "Then why did you bring the axe?" And the father said, "Because I didn't want to pay."
Thank you, Todd. We've missed you the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have anybody with happy news?
I have some to share.
Great.
My daughter had a baby on Saturday. He was a month early. He's at Blank Hospital, but he is doing much better every day. He's making progress, so we're happy about that.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Carol Hibbs, you have any news on the baby watch yet? Nope. Oh, you're muted.
We are still on baby watch. So
Okay. Well,
maybe by next week.
You'll have to let us know.
Okay.
I can share. I may have shared this last year. My parents celebrated this year it's 51 years together. And so we didn't have a party or anything. They were just by themselves, but they were married on Pearl Harbor Day. So I always remember that date. And, small town Iowa, they grew up near each other. And so when they started dating on their second date, they got engaged. So I guess, you kind of know, I guess. On the other hand, my husband and I dated for 10 years before we got married. So I guess I took a different route. But anyway, they've been a great example and great support and stability for me. So it's worth celebrating.
So maybe it evens out between you and your parents?
Yes.
Wow. Great. Any more happy news? Okay, I think we're ready for our program. And Tom, are you the introducer or Bob? I'm not sure who is.
I am the introducer today, Mary.
Thank you.
Let me just double check here. Michelle was having some difficulty getting in. I see your name there, Michelle. Are you doing okay?
I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Yes, indeed. We don't see a picture yet. Do you have a picture, or are you just doing audio?
Well, I'm going to join without video. I have connection issues. So if I put the video on, then there's a delay and fuzziness and whatnot. So
All right. Well,
you don't get to look at me today.
many of you know Michelle, so just picture a image of Michelle as you know her at the Historical Society. Well, let me do a introduction then, and we'll get her started. Uh, Michelle was born in Iowa City, but lived in Ferguson, Marshalltown, and Montour. After that, she actually grew up also in Mesa, Arizona. She attended both Northern Arizona University and Arizona State University, and worked as a marketeer for Motorola in Phoenix. Michelle and her children moved back to Marshalltown in 2000, where she quickly became involved with many community organizations, and I'm sure many of you have worked with her in that capacity. Past organizations include Child Abuse Prevention Services, Building Healthy Families, AEA 267 Early Access Council, St. Mary Parish Council, and the Marshalltown Area Catholic School Board. Currently, she's involved in organizations such as Live on Stage Marshalltown, Tuesday Musical Club, Entre Nous Club, Early American Glass Club, PEO, it goes on, Central College Parent Council, Marshalltown Federation of Women's Clubs, and is the director of the St. Mary Funeral Choir. More recently, Mary joined the Historical Society of Marshall County, located on the Lincoln Highway, as a board member in early 2013, and then transitioned to its administrator. She is also a trustee for the Susie Sauer Trust, along with Dr. Dennis Drager and Stephen Irvine. A lifelong student of history, she loves her work with the extensive archive and artifact. I'll start again with the archive and artifact collections at various historical sites. She is also very much enjoying the community outreach element of her position, which includes helping others with their historical and genealogical research, hosting both public and private events, and giving programs to local groups. Michelle is a proud mother to 4 children. Tess teaches high school in Shanghai. Jordan recently moved to Des Moines. Dylan attends Central College in Pella, and Stella attends Middlebury College in Vermont. Restoring her own historic home, she also is located on the Lincoln Highway. It's one of her passions, as well as gardening, cooking, and reading. She is currently enrolled at the University of Iowa, studying museum studies and nonprofit organizational management. Uh, Michelle actually was remarried fairly recently, and she and her husband split their time between Marshalltown and Gainesville, Florida. It is my great pleasure then to turn the program over to Michelle. And Michelle, let's hope that the electronics are in your favor at this time. You've got the mic.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you all today. I know a lot of you are already very familiar with the Historical Society of Marshall County and the various sites that we manage. We have been in existence since 1908. It's always been a private nonprofit organization with lots of involvement from various names that you are going to recognize, Anna Howe, and at the beginning going on, John Mowry, Mary Helen Bradbury, lots of familiar prominent folks in Marshalltown have supported this organization. We have the Mowry Irvine Mansion right now is our headquarters that was donated by Madeline in 2017 Fortunately, we had that location that was not very affected by the tornado, because the museum, as you know, was extremely affected. All of our collections are in storage right now, but we're moving forward with some new museum, and I'm going to talk about that more later. We also administer the Matthew Ito Blacksmith Shop in Haverhill on behalf of the State Historical Society. We have our Taylor No. 4 Country School, which is one of the best examples of an active country school with reenactments for all of our county fourth graders. We have, of course, the Susie Sauer House that we have available for tours and private tours and student tours and things like that. Susie Sauer was a longtime member of the Historical Society. She was the active secretary for many, many years, and worked with John Mowry to create the trust, leaving the home and its contents and funds for the support of the Historical Society. We also have, through some partnerships in the last few years, we've been doing a lot more with public events. Because we're a private nonprofit, we rely on memberships and donations and any income from those public events to support our work and our mission, which is to preserve the past of Marshalltown, the rich, rich past for all of our future generations. We have an amazing community with a really, really diverse history. Our collections are, wow, we have a lot, whether it's military, medical, pioneer history. We have a lot of local art represented in our collections as well. So that kind of leads me to what's coming up for us. We have been having conversations with Bob regarding the future of the Central Iowa Art Association. One of our board members, longtime board member, Steve Sutherland, actually came up with the idea that we should approach the Central Iowa Art Association about an effort to share this rich culture that we have in our community, and a way that we can collaborate and do that more effectively. We are in the process of planning for a new museum building. Currently, the idea is to construct that new facility on the property at 503 West Main. There's a very large part of the block that is just currently yard. And so this new facility would have display space, programming space, and office space. And then we would reserve the Maury Irvine Mansion for, the private events and tours. So as we are thinking about what our space needs are and our display space, and then thinking about how the Central Iowa Art Association is kind of homeless right now. They're still conducting classes out at the college, but there isn't anywhere for their collections are also all in storage at this time. And the Central Iowa Art Association it's a part of that rich cultural landscape of Marshall County. They've been around since the mid 40s. It began as an art study group, primarily through the efforts of some women who were members of the American Association of University Women. And they had started out holding art classes at the YMCA before they made an official move toward being their own organization. And some of those early chair people they had art fairs, Mrs. J.K. Gard, Ray Frederick. I think that first art fair was in 1955. They used to hold those, for those of you who have been around, on the courthouse lawn, and continued to do that until the Fisher Community Center was built. There's been local artists and art aficionados involved with the Central Iowa Art Association for all of these years. And they have quite a lovely ceramic collection. that many of you have seen on display in the lobby of the Fisher Community Center. And some of those significant pieces, shower head, the patched satchel. There's some pretty lovely examples of ceramic art. There's some history in, there's a large black book that was published in 1997, thanks to Dorothy Apgar. And in that, Anise Frederick wrote a little bit about the art collections that were housed there. And according to her account, you know, we all know that the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist paintings housed in that gallery, fabulous collection. They are not a part of the Central Iowa Art Association collection. They're part of the Fisher family legacy. Some of the bronzes also are a part of that collection. And then there's the pieces behind that are a part of the Martha Ellen type playhouse. So one solution to this problem that we're considering is this partnership, because then there can be display space for our historical items and artifacts, and also display space for those beautiful ceramic pieces. The programming space could be used for things like our history on Third Thursday programs that we've had for years and years. There's also an arm of the Historical Society. In the last couple of years, we brought under our umbrella the Central Iowa Genealogical Society, and they have been having their programs at the Marshalltown Public Library, but there would be space in this new museum for those. And there could also be space for the Central Iowa Art Association programs and classes. So it's really a win-win for all of these organizations to, you know, not have siloed efforts to celebrate our culture, but work together and use our resources in a more efficient way. So conversations have only just begun about this, and no final decisions have been made, but board members on both sides are really, really excited about this opportunity to collaborate, to celebrate our culture and our history at the same time. And details, we're communicating details as we as we come up with them. But as I said, no final decisions have been made, and we're also welcoming input from the community, which is, I was really excited that Bob invited me to speak to you all today, because I know all of you, you're involved in Rotary because you care about this community, and you're all involved in all sorts of other things, and your input is going to be invaluable to us as we move forward. So that's the quick version. That's the thumbnail version. I guess I'd love to open it up to any questions anybody might have right now, or suggestions, input. One thing that we're doing is as we make these plans, is I have been working with the State Historical Society and the Iowa Museum Association to find out about other organizations and communities in Iowa that have done this sort of thing, and there are many. Whether it was building new facilities, whether it's merging with other organizations to foster appreciation of culture, and I'm getting good feedback from them, but I'm more than delighted to take any other any other feedback, or you know, maybe from any questions you might have, might lead us to asking other questions themselves. And I know Bob will be appreciative of that as well. So anybody? Comments?
Michelle, you might note in the chat, Karn has asked a question. Can you get to it? You probably can't get to it. Let me read the question to you.
Right here.
From Karn Gregory.
No, I've got it. Okay.
Okay. Go for it.
I'd love to do that. Okay. An update on the rehab of the building at 123 Main Street. So that building at 123 Main Street was owned by Susie Sauer's father, and it is a part of the Sauer Trust property holdings. And for many, many, many years, decades, it was rented as a retail space and was an income source for the trust. Sometime in the last 20 years, the Historical Society had been spending a lot of money on storage, and the decision was made to use the building on Main Street 123 as storage for the Historical Society. And that's where it is right now. It is still storage. Obviously, it was damaged pretty heavily by the tornado. I want to thank Amber Danielson very much for getting that artist to paint that plywood. It's a great piece. Kind of brightens it up a little bit. Since the tornado, I have been, okay, back up. Right before the tornado, we had already been working with contractors, and we had a report from an architect through the Iowa Economic Development Authority to restore that facade. In fact, I had met with them the week before the tornado. And then, because we have photos, that building was built at some point in the late 1880s, early 1890s. And we do have photos of, and it had a couple different facades, different doorway configurations, et cetera. So after the tornado, there were insurance funds, but not enough to restore the facade to the historic look that we were going for. And then the idea being restore the facade and then work on the inside and return to using that building as a retail space uptown and help support the trust and the Historical Society. I have had conversations with Deb, the Central Business District, the Region 6, and forgive me, I can't remember her name. And we're going to be pursuing grants one way or the other, whether it's community foundation funds, whether it's central business, one of those avenues, whatever the most efficient avenue is, and return that building to its former glory and make it an income stream for the trust and the Historical Society again. So that's where we are with that. And I'm just waiting to hear back about the Region 6 effort right now. So it's on pause, but it's still happening. Dennis.
I think that's just a general, I don't know if that's, was that just a general question, Dennis? Or was that for Michelle?
Both.
Okay.
Michelle has no answer for that question. Anything else?
Michelle, I would like to emphasize a couple of things quickly here. Number one, how absolutely delighted we are as the Central Iowa Art Association to be entering into this proposed merger between the two organizations. It is a proposed merger. We don't have the details worked out, as Michelle said, but I want to let you folks know that both boards unanimously approved going forward with this merger discussion. It's very exciting for the Art Association. We've been around, as Michelle indicated now, for over 75 years. It is a wonderful feeling for me and the other board members and others who are involved with the Art Association to think that we now will have a home where we can display the art, as Michelle indicated. We have a lot of very, very, very wonderful pieces that need to be rotated into a display format. We're also going to continue with our teaching, whether that continues with the college or with some space in the building that is, of course, a couple of years down the road, remains to be seen. But we also, and this is just a pet thought of mine, I'd like to see a space where emerging artists will have an opportunity to get in and do some work, to be able to create, to display, perhaps to sell. So we've talked about that kind of space. In general, it's a great idea, and I thank Steve Sutherland and Michelle, of course, and Dan Brandt and others on the board for pushing this idea and to make it possible for us. I want to also emphasize the openness of what we're trying to do. We'll make details available as we can, as soon as we can, because we really want to hear community input on this idea. So I will shush and let the rest of you folks ask any questions you might have of Michelle.
Another thing that I should stress, I know Steve Sutherland would want me to stress this, is that we have currently, as for resources, we have, and the funds from the tornado were held in reserve, the funds that were designated for the museum building. And those are currently in CDs and have been specifically designated for a new museum effort. There's a little bit, another resource could be a little bit of funds from the Central Iowa Art Association, but we know that none of that is going to be enough. And so we are going to need grants, of course, and hopefully some community buy-in for the construction of the new facility, because we absolutely are committed to not incurring any debt at all to make this happen. Because that's always an important question, right? How much is it going to cost and who's going to pay for it?
So
What
Michelle,
else?
maybe you've answered this, but I'm interested in the museum, the old museum. It still is not, talk about the rehab or the plans for the future for that.
Actually, that building was sold, and the funds from the sale, it was sold as is. That building is an important part of our history. It was built in 1869 by Dr. George Glick, and it was their family home. It had another, it has another kind of interesting history itself. It was I think it was a halfway house. It was a boarding house. But the foundation had been completely redone a couple of years ago. There was a water issue, and those repairs were made thanks to the Martha Ellen Ty Foundation. So that part of the building is solid. The damage caused by the tornado, it was so extensive, and the decision not to rehabilitate that building was because even though the insurance funds would have covered it, that wasn't ever really a good public building for something like a museum. Most of the collections were housed upstairs. There's no way to put an elevator in. You know, it wasn't handicap accessible. It didn't meet, you know, there were a lot of code issues for the wiring. So it needed quite a bit more love than it really, we had even the insurance funds for. So the Historical Society board decided to offer that building for sale. And so it was purchased by Denny Gray. I have no idea what his plans are for that building. I hope it gets rehabilitated because I do think it's an important part of our downtown history. And it's one of the last few residence buildings that still exist down there. So hopefully he'll do something great with it. But it's no longer owned by the Historical Society. So if anybody knows Denny Gray and wants to ask him what he's doing with it, let me know. I'm curious. Did I answer your question about the
Yes.
house? Is that?
Another question, I
Okay.
mean, yeah, a question came up in the chat, what will happen to the house now that it has been sold, but just want to make sure you saw that.
Yeah, I did. I
Mhm.
just saw that. You're all quiet. Did I do such a good job that you don't have any questions?
You did a great job as far as I'm concerned, Michelle.
Thanks, Bob.
As
Well,
usual.
I was going to say, if there are no further questions, I would like to thank Michelle for her information today and Bob for lining her up. And to remind you that next week we are beginning our meeting early at noon. So don't forget that. It will be just a holiday event primarily. We'll be giving awards, and then there will be a special Christmas reflections program given by my husband, David. So that concludes our program for today. If you would recite with me the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I now declare our program adjourned. Thank you. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. Be sure to get in touch with either Michelle or me if you
Thanks,
have
Michelle.
questions. I'm sorry, Tom?
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.